Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to TDY, where we grow more each day in faith, family, and finance. For those that don't know me, my name is Winston Wanne. I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm an entrepreneur, an investor, a cloud architect, but more than that, and most importantly, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. This is The Driven Youth, where we challenge each other in each of these three categories every single week. So today is kind of like a interesting type of topic, right? I'm a firm believer in example and experience being the best teacher. But the thing is, experience does not necessarily have to be your experience. In fact, my mom always says, you either learn by experience or you be the experience that someone else learns from. And I couldn't agree more. That being said, I wanted to look through one of the most interesting men in the Bible and learn from his example. We're talking about Joseph today. So for those that might be particularly interested, you can find out all about Joseph's life from chapter 37 to 47 in the Bible. But today we're just going to be talking about a subset of it. We're just going to be talking about his journey, how he became so successful and what he learned along the way. There's a lot of scriptural references and a lot of text to support everything that I'm saying, but I'm going to be paraphrasing a lot because we have a lot to step through. And I'm just trusting God that as we begin to study this man's life, that we're able to learn more about what God can do with anybody, with any circumstance, in any situation as well. So, context, right? Joseph was one of 12 sons, right? He was his dad's favorite. So as you can imagine, that just naturally comes with a little bit of tension with the other brothers, right? Also, he was a natural born leader. He had a lot of the spiritual, mental, and physical tools needed to be a leader. But like everybody on this planet, Joseph was flawed. He definitely had his weaknesses as well. Some of these flaws actually became apparent through a set of dreams that he had, right? So he had the first dream was he was in the field with his brothers binding grain, and then his grain that he was binding stood up while the ones of his brothers actually fell down before it and began to bow down to it. Naturally, being the child that he was, 17 years old, he immediately took this dream, ran to his brothers, and even though they hated him, after he told him the dream, now they really, really hated him. Now, let's examine this a little bit because there's a lot here. We can spend a lot of time here. But you should be able to take your dreams to your family. You should be able to run to them with these lofty dreams and then them not shoot it down or them not hate you more for it. You should be able to dream big and share it with these people. However, here's a pro tip. Discernment is critical. Just like Jesus said, when he said, everybody that says, Lord, Lord, will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, I'm going to propose this. Everybody that calls you bro, bro, or everybody that calls you sis, sis, should not have access to your dreams like that. I promise you there is a subset of people in your life. Your critical core members in your life are the only ones, you, God, and them are the only ones that should have that access into your deepest dreams and aspirations. Everybody else is probably just not built or equipped enough to help you bring it to fruition. All right, bet. Now, Joseph had another dream, right? And this dream, I think this one was a little bit more like flesh. You know what I'm saying? Because here's why. Let me explain it to you. So the first dream really had a lot to do with what Joseph was doing with his hands, right? People think that it was the grain represented Joseph, right? And the other grain that was bowing down to Joseph represented his brothers. When in reality, it was Joseph's binding of the grain. His grain stood up. And his brothers who were binding grain, their grain fell down. So it really wasn't necessarily Joseph and his brothers. It was what Joseph was doing with his hands versus what his brothers were doing with their hands. Does that make sense? It was Joseph's stewardship opposed to his brother's stewardship, the work of their hands, right? That Joseph's stewardship was exalted because obviously he was doing something different than his brothers. Now, the second one was literally just the stars, moon, and sun bowing down to Joseph. And like that's a little cocky, you know what I'm saying? Like even for Jay, like that's a little cocky. So regardless of how cocky that dream sounded, right? Good old Joseph took it right to his father, took it right to his brothers. And of course, that time his dad reprimanded him. But he even kept it in the back of his mind, right? Because he was like, as a man of God, Israel, Jacob, he was like, yo, there might be some sense to this. So he kept it in the back of his mind. So let's fast forward a couple years here, right? Joseph has been tried to be killed by his brothers, sold into slavery. He has been wrongfully accused of raping a cougar who actually wanted him and just lied about it. He's been thrown in prison. He's been forgotten about. All these things have happened to this man, but in all of it, he continues to succeed. In all of it, he doesn't stop doing three things. He doesn't stop walking with God. He doesn't stop perfecting his skill set. And he does not stop helping others, offering value. In fact, chapter 39, verse 2 actually says, the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. Verse 23 says, the warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. See, Joseph's success wasn't predicated on his situation. It wasn't predicated on his connections, on his clout, on his charisma, none of that. Joseph's success was solely predicated on one thing, his relationship with God and his service to his fellow man. So fast forward a couple years, right? Pharaoh has a dream about 7 cows getting eaten up by 7 skinny cows and 7 big ears of corn getting eaten up by 7 skinnier ears of corn. And of course, Joseph's been interpreting dreams while he's in prison. So he gets called up to help Pharaoh interpret his dream. Here's where things get a little bit interesting. We start seeing that dream that Joseph had 20 years ago start coming to fruition, right? Because once he interprets that dream for Pharaoh, Pharaoh puts him in charge over all the land in terms of storing food and other types of responsibilities. So now Joseph begins to steward his grain a little bit differently. So over the years of surplus, over the first 7 years of surplus, Joseph is working, he's doing what he got to do, but he's stacking his bread figuratively and literally. Like he's literally saving his grain, right? So now after that 7 years is up, we start seeing people who probably did not steward the way that Joseph stewarded. Now they're coming to him, bowing down to him for his bread, for his grain. Does that kind of make sense? We start seeing that dream from 20 years ago come to fruition. And the craziest part about all of this, after this 20-something year journey, I don't think that the plan or the goal really was his success or his status or everything that he was able to achieve. I really and genuinely think that God's plan in all of this was the character that he was able to instill within Joseph. I believe this because when he finally came face to face with his brothers, he forgave them. He had the character in him, and you know, he's human, right? So he definitely worked through his pettiness a little bit. He threw him in prison for a couple days. He made him run back and forth. Me, dude, like me, I'm violating. But that's why there's called a process. That's why everybody is going through a process, and that's why the process cannot be overlooked. We live in a world of get rich quick, Dogecoin to the moon, like microwave type of success, without realizing that success is never the goal. Like actually 70% of people that have won the lottery and have become millionaires from it go broke within 5 years or less. Success is not the goal. Sustainable success is the goal. Without the character and the infrastructure built up within yourself to sustain that success, it's going to be fleeting. In fact, character development, I believe, is the number one reason why unsuccessful people become successful. Conversely, I believe character development or lack of character development is the number one reason successful people eventually become unsuccessful. Overall, my prayer is just that God continues to give us the grace to trust in his timeline, trust in his plan, to realize that Joseph's life wasn't a total failure, by the age of 30 when he was still in prison. That this whole journey that we're on takes time. It's a process, and that we're able to learn from our mistakes in the past, other people's mistakes that they've made, and we're able to trust God's timeline on it. I also pray that God gives us the faith to pray more than we plan, that he gives us the selflessness to serve our fellow man and put our issues at the cross and let God deal with them, and also the integrity to never compromise on our God-given values. Thanks for watching, y'all. Peace.